Knockhill Circuit in Scotland, overlooking the Firth of Forth, is a great little racetrack, but the weather can be pretty fierce, and late May can often feel like winter. In his search for success in the British GT Championship, Jonathan France had brought his team north to do battle with the Ferraris, the TVRs and the other Porsches that stand between him and the title. This was the first of 5 double-headers that form the backbone of the 13-race series. Round 1 at Donington had been pretty disappointing. Engine management problems meant a single point for 8th place after 2 hours of racing, with the Scuderia Ecos Ferraris taking the top 2 places. The series then went to southern France, to the middle of Charolais cattle country. Magny Cours is the home of the French Grand Prix, and in April it played host to the FIA's GT series. The British GT2 class joined in their 3-hour race, the longest event of the series. And in practice, the team performed well. Ben Collins and Neil Cunningham in confident mood.
About 1.5 seconds quicker than I went yesterday, but then it was a cooler session than the one I ran quickly. And it's good. I think we made the right change with the car all weekend, and so it's a good improvement. Yeah, definitely. It's about as quick as I can get it anyway.
In first qualifying on Saturday morning, Ben handed over to Neil 4th fastest, but after a few minutes, Neil saw a warning light come on in the car. There was nothing for it but to coast gently back to the pits. A hose had come adrift and the engine had dumped all its water on the track. Neil had backed off in 3 seconds, so the team were fairly confident that the engine was undamaged. But working out why it had come off was more worrying. In the heat of the afternoon, Neil wasn't expecting to better Ben's time during second qualifying, but he did need to make sure the engine was okay. For a while, it ran fine. Then dramatically, his windscreen was covered in water as a radiator connection in the nose of the car let go. For the next few hours, the team struggled to locate the cause of the problem and find a solution.
So it's a bar and a quarter of a bar.
By the evening, they were reasonably reassured and decided against putting in their new engine. Sunday morning gave the chance of using the warm-up to check that all was well, but they didn't even make the track. While running the engine up to temperature, a weep of cooling fluid was seen coming from the head gasket, and now an engine change was essential and just possible in the time. The team set to work. But on reflection, Jonathan decided to withdraw. There was no way they could compete, running in the new engine for an hour on the track and then racing for the last 2. It was better to try and work out what was going wrong.
We need to find out whether it's something that we're doing wrong, maybe the drivers are doing wrong, or something within the engine that's not performing as it should. There's clearly a function problem somewhere, but at this stage it's too difficult to pinpoint exactly what that is.
In the event, Andrew Kirkcaldy and Nathan Kinch led home the British contingent to score another 10 points, so Embassy then trailed them by 19. After such a poor start to the season, Scotland needed to provide some encouragement. Saturday's practice helped with a solid 4th fastest behind the Ferraris and the TVR. This the result of a lot of hectic activity after the failure in France.
We took our spare engine to the dyno in Germany, where it ran without any problems. We put that in the car back at Magny Cours and did a hour's test a week subsequent to the race, and everything went very, very well. We were over a second quicker in the test than we'd gone in qualifying.
So now, looking back at it, what went wrong in Magny Cours? What was wrong with the engine?
The engine went back to Porsche, and when they opened it up, we found we'd got a cracked cylinder head. So it would have been very foolish to race with that. We could have been looking at a huge repair bill and obviously doing ourselves no favours in front of the sponsors and the FIA.
Jonathan decided to use the non-championship FIA race at Silverstone as an extended test session and was delighted to come away with 2nd in class.
Yeah, we were very pleased. 2nd in our class for the Tourist Trophy. It was a really big race for our sponsors and something we felt we couldn't turn down the invitation. So to go from, like I say, depths of despair at Magny Cours to podium, yes, definitely the right thing to do.
There were several faces missing from the team after France. Was this perhaps the key to their newfound success?
I mean, we're not into a blame culture at Embassy. We're more of a team that says, look, these are the circumstances, let's get on and deal with what we've got. And the way we put the team together in such a short time, we pulled people in who maybe weren't ideal for the roles they were given, but they were expedient at the time to get us up and racing. And we've had a little bit of time now to see things gel and who fits where, and it's all about getting the right people in the right roles.
The only blot on Saturday morning was an off near the end of practice by Ben Collins. But it didn't worry his team boss.
I'd rather he goes off whilst he's trying than be sort of way off the pace and not trying at all. So, no, nothing to worry about. I told him he's not in trouble.
It was Neil's turn to set a qualifying time for the first of the two 60-minute races. This third place has slipped to fourth by the end, behind a Ferrari, a TVR and the Jordan and Kane Porsche.
Well, it's a bit eventful. It's all about traffic out there. It's just, track's too small, great track to drive in, but it's traffic. And they go to the hairpin. You can't use the right-hand side of the track. It's just too bumpy. So everybody's going to be going down in single file, and whoever takes the inside line is going to be very, very iffy. But I'll take it. If it's there, I'll take it.
In second qualifying, Ben managed a similar placing, but found the handling not ideal.
Too much front.
Rolled too much in the back.
Okay.
Couldn't go any quicker where I needed to, which is up the hill.
Right. Still good.
Good effort. Well done. That was good. Good effort. Very happy with that. Yeah, I'll do.
With the first race barely 2 hours away and the weather playing its customary Knockhill tricks, the team needed to decide on a strategy for their pit stops.
Really wet, and it's going to dry. We want to try, if we're going to do a change, to get into our window. We want to save, don't want to do two stops. It's, you know, the same with slicks, or if it's going wet or whatever.
By 3:30, there were still showers around, but the tarmac was drying. Jonathan's lieutenants had to make the decision on tyres, wets, intermediates or slicks. They chose slicks. Of their rivals, only the Nissan followed their bold move, although the Ferrari team had their slicks ready for a fast change. On the grid, the clouds were still threatening as the minutes ticked away towards the start. The Ferraris and the Mike Jordan Porsche stayed on intermediate, while at Embassy the car was up on its jacks, ready to change back if necessary. Saturday afternoon at Knockhill, and the third race of the British GT Championship got underway on a damp and treacherous track. In car 77, Mike Jordan led from Nathan Kinch's Ferrari and the TVR of Patrick Pearce. Lying fourth, Neil Cunningham in the Embassy Porsche knew his slick tyres would be at a disadvantage unless the track dried completely. And in the meantime, he had to avoid getting caught out on the damp patches. Into the hairpin, Nathan Kinch dived inside Mike Jordan on the really wet apex and took the lead. Neil stayed wide on the drier track, but that let Chris Niarchos through into fourth. On the drag up to the crest, the second Ferrari powered away, but Neil was also under attack from David Jones in the Eurotech Porsche. Under braking, Neil held back, waiting for his tyres to come up to temperature. Out of the chicane, Kinch led Jordan, but Pearce slid wildly towards the grass as he fought to keep in touch. Now Jordan had the inside line and regained the lead. The way these three were carrying on, you'd think it was a 10-lap sprint, not a 60-minute enduro. Now Nathan Kinch was risking the inside line into the chicane that Neil said was so bumpy. Bumps or not, he made it work and retook the lead. Behind the first three, Chris Niarchos was in touch, David Jones not far back, while Neil watched from sixth. Down into Duffer's Dip on lap 3, they were side by side at the front. Kinch on the inside but wetter line, Jordan powered back in front. through the chicane, he looked a little more secure, and now Pearce was challenging Kinch. Same as last lap, the inside line was grippy enough to mean the TVR slipped up to second. But that position had to be defended. Pearce went wide to keep Kinch back, hugging the inside line up to the hairpin. A gentle kiss from Kinch reminded Pearce he was still there, while behind the train had closed up. Neil was definitely in touch. On lap 6, the pattern was disrupted when the TVR was pulled in for a stop-and-go penalty for ignoring the flexible markers at the chicane. Dropping back to 8th was really tough for the team, especially as the other car hadn't even made the start after blowing its engine. Neil Cunningham passed the Jones Porsche on lap 6 and by lap 8 was ready to challenge Krasniarkos. Down to the hairpin, Neil had the outside line, but Chris kept him out there to maintain his position on the drying track. On the drag up to the start-finish line, Ferrari power ensured Chris was safe in 4th. For the moment, at least. If Knockhill Straight is about power, the rest of the circuit is all about grip. Out of McIntyre's, Neil's nimbler Porsche nipped past the Ferrari to take back 3rd place. There were still wet patches on the tarmac, but the cars were no longer throwing up spray. Slick tyres were the ones to have. Starting lap 9, Mike Jordan had 1.7 seconds over Nathan Kinch, but Neil was closing in fast. He could run 2 seconds quicker than the Eurotech Porsche, and the Ferrari was also finding his rubber not working as well. Out of McIntyre's, Neil again blasted by without any trouble. A lap later, and it was their Porsche rivals who were under attack. Mike Jordan in the lead Eurotech car. Neil followed him through McIntyre's, and then as Mike ran wide at the next right kink, Neil slipped through into the lead. Out of the chicane, the Embassy Porsche held a tight line and streaked away, able to put about 10 seconds over the Jordan car in just 4 laps. On the pit wall, the Embassy team permitted themselves a quiet smile to see their car leading a race for the very first time. Everyone has to stop once, but not before 23 minutes into the hour. Their rivals knew it would take too long to change tyres outside the pit window and then stop again to change drivers, so they just had to hope they would still be in touch once they were back on equal terms. Just before the pit stops, the lead had stretched to 25 seconds between Neil and his main rivals. Mike Jordan was among the first to stop. The rules say a driver change must take a minimum of 45 seconds to be sure that safety isn't compromised. Any work on the car should take place outside that period. Sometimes it's worth saving seconds by ignoring the rules. As he came in for his pit stop, Nathan Kinch nearly collided with Godfrey Jones. The Ferraris tried the same trick of changing drivers and tyres at the same time. They knew from trying it out in practice that the time lost in a drive-through penalty down Knockhill's short pit lane was less than the time gained in the changeover. Would their gamble work? By the time Neil brought in the Embassy Porsche, he had a comfortable lead, but Ben would go out on warm tyres to face a Ferrari challenge on fresh slicks. Could he hold on to the flag? Once the pit stops were over, the lead was down to just under 10 seconds, but Neil was happy with his afternoon's work.
Yeah, that was good. I've done my job, now it's the young gun's turn to see what he can do with the car. As you're aware, we started on slicks, and I was really concerned. Well done, mate. I was really concerned at the beginning, and I just dropped back, we get the heat of the tyres, and just pulled our way back up. And I actually took the lead off Mike for the chicane. He was on wets, and he was struggling. And I could see he was in all sorts of trouble, and it was good. You know, couldn't have asked for a better start. You know, great call. It was just call, and it was the right call for us.
And do you think they can hang on now because Andrew's pulling them in?
I think we've got enough lead. Hopefully, if we do lose the win, we'll get a podium anyway. So that's a good start at the moment.
For Ben, getting through the traffic was the problem in hand. Down to the hairpin, he found his way blocked by Warren Hughes' TVR and Ali McKeever in the Nissan. They were battling over 5th place, while Ben was more concerned with the chasing Ferrari. Blue flags were waving, and it looked clear to pass, but that touch with the Nissan could easily have proved disastrous. With 10 minutes to go, Ben was just 3 seconds ahead of the charging Andrew Kirkcaldy, all the more keen to do well on the team's home patch. For the honour of the Saltire, Scuderia Ecos were especially keen to win this one. But the stewards had spotted their pit stop ruse, and the screens told their own story. Both Ferraris would have to drive through the pits to atone for breaking the rules. Doug Bebb and Jonathan France knew they now had a real chance. After the speed-limiting drive through the pits, Andrew Kirkcaldy was 15 seconds back with just 9 minutes to go. It was too big a task, and Ben Collins' lead was safe. As the last minute of the hour ticked by, Ben brought the Embassy Porsche home with a comfortable 6-second gap back to the previously all-powerful Ferrari. Up the hill to the flag, and the troubled start to the season was forgotten for the moment. Ben knew he'd been in a fight, but acknowledged his teammates' contribution.
Well done, lads, that's awesome. Thanks very much. Mega result, you boys really earned. Thanks very much.
Neil did all the work really in the first half of the race. We got a really good choice with our tyres, but I thought it was we all thought it was fairly clear what to do with to go with slicks, and he did amazing to get past so many cars on wet, some more wet grip tyres than he did on his slick. So to hand that over to me with a big lead, all I had to do was nurse it home. So well done to Neil, and a fantastic result by the Embassy team. Have really earned it. I keep saying, the team that started 4 months ago, I think that's really impressive. To get a win in our 3rd race as a team in the British Series is mega.
After a hectic few months for his new venture, Jonathan France drew some satisfaction from the win.
Well, like I say, we've had a lot of bad luck so far this season. Perhaps now we're on a little bit of a roll, and somebody else is getting a dose of the bad luck. I don't know whether it was luck to call a strategy right. I think that was just clever thinking on our part, really. We've got some really good brains on the team at the moment with Jeff and Doug, and my role is sort of taking a bit of a back seat. But yeah, it's good to see it all coming together at last. Yes.
OK, prospects for tomorrow?
I'd like to do the same again. Obviously, the weather will dictate, I'm sure. But we've shown we've got good race pace. Our strategy is good, so I'm sure we can be on the podium, and I say maybe with a big trophy again.
Sunday seemed likely to pose the same conundrum. The morning warm-up was wet, the forecast was for more showers. Would the lunchtime race be held on a wet or dry track? Back in the awning, Shane Dolan was busy under the car, and this was more than routine checking. The discarded roll bar told its own story. The team had opted for a softer front bar to help the handling in a wet race. Sunday's race was scheduled for 1 o'clock, and by then the weather was brightening.
Just see better what's happening.
Let's hope that it's as good as yesterday. Hey?
Sorry?
Let's hope it's as good as yesterday.
Me too.
Ben Collins went to the grid on intermediates, but at the last minute they changed to slicks. It looked as if the tyres would be right, but the suspension set up wrong.
We have a pretty good setup for all conditions.
How big a difficulty would it be if you've got too soft a front roll bar?
We're about to find out, I suppose.
Right, get the girls off the grid. Look.
All right.
At the rolling start, Ben found himself caught out. He was already 4 seconds down on 3rd. With the changing conditions, he'd thought there'd be 2 laps behind the safety car. Now he had to try and claw back the disadvantage before thinking about making up places. For a driver with so much experience of rolling starts, it was a novice's error. At the front, Tim Mullen's Ferrari was 2nd, with Warren Hughes 3rd in the TVR, Ben already a little closer. On to lap 2, the gap ahead of Ben was less than 2 seconds, so the Embassy car clearly had the pace to challenge those ahead. In the lead, Andrew Kirkcaldy was taking seconds out of the field. Teammate Tim Mullen lost it at the chicane, trying to keep up. He recovered in 8th place, apparently undamaged. Ben Collins soon passed Warren Hughes into 2nd behind Andrew, and the gap to the leading Ferrari hovered around 6 seconds for the first 15 laps. After 30, the gap was 12 seconds, and by then Tim Mullen was also up to 3rd and closing in fast. As Neil prepared to take over, Doug and Jeff made the decision about when to stop.
I would think any time now. So we get Neil up to speed earlier than Kim.
Yeah. Halfway. What's the problem?
Okay.
Just before the half-hour mark, Ben Collins came in for his 45-second long pit stop.
Go to the front brake.
The smoke from the back brakes was an indication of them doing too much work, and Ben warned Neil to turn the brake balance knob to give more bias towards the front. That message might need to be reinforced later on the radio. Holding 2nd behind the Ferrari was pretty good, but had the softer roll bar compromised their performance?
We were running with a car that wasn't ideal for the conditions, and you know, it won't help the durability of our tyres either. But that's now Neil's problem. So no, I mean, it wasn't handling as well as it would have done. But I think again we made the right decision. It's just you have to go with the call you've got at the time with looking at the track, and it seemed like a good way to go.
After they pitted, Neil soon found himself under challenge from Mike Jordan. Mike was able to run about a second quicker and took over 3rd from Neil on the 39th lap. Over the last third of the race, the gap stretched out to 12 seconds. The margin between Embassy and a 2nd podium in Scotland to go with their first victory. For the Scuderia Ecos team, order was restored, with the Kinch and Kirkcaldy car taking their 3rd win out of 4 starts, 20 seconds up on their teammates. For Neil, the wrong car setup was the decisive factor.
Just had the wrong car for the day. I could run low 52s, sorry, low 53s. It just wasn't quick enough. But we'd been with Mike Jordan. You could just see how much quicker he was coming out of the hairpin. We had a good car around the back, but everything's geared here out of the hairpin. We didn't have it right.
Jonathan France was philosophical about the result at the end of a weekend that had started so well.
Obviously disappointing after yesterday to not be on the podium again, but if that's the best we can do, well, we'll take any points that we can.
So the pleasure of Saturday's maiden win was tempered by a feeling of underachievement on Sunday. But there was little time to reflect on the situation. The next round was just 6 days away and at the other end of the country, at Britain's fastest track, Thruxton.